Welcome to Community Crossfire, another point of view. I'm your host, Norman Oliver. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, we have a hot show this evening. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. We're going to get into a subject that may be uncomfortable for some people, but may be comfortable for other people. I hope that you have your friends call in and look at the show, get your, like Al Plant we used to say, get your ice cream. We're going to be talking about civil marriage and civil unions, talk about gay and lesbian couples and just the right to getting married in the state of Delaware. And we want to know how you feel about it. And we have some great guests on who's going to state their case. So before I go to my guests, I always have something I want to talk about. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the African American Sports Hall of Fame. Wow, what an incredible event last night. I was so honored to be there. I think that it's funny that when you say you give people 3 minutes to talk, that don't mean 30 minutes. I mean, some of them folks, I was inducted, but I do understand that you have to thank everyone. But without that, it was good. And we had the 1973 Howard team. I want to thank Mark Seals for all the work he's done, seriously. I think that that's incredible for those guys. I mean, it's always a pleasure seeing Mike Miller, Kenny Henson, Isaiah Reason, all those guys, Hedge Roan, Rashid Mustafa, and to see all those guys come down. Eric Fuller, I hadn't seen in a long time. Joe Robinson. It was just an incredible event. My brother was the ball boy on that team. My brother Abdul Thomas Oliver, he's got like 45 awards for being a ball boy. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they've ever had a ball boy to get that many awards. Mm-hmm. Abdul, that's your last award. And besides, somebody need to tell him in 1973, the clothes they wore in 1973, he's wearing them today. And then he talks about my clothes. Hey, look, Abdul, that's your last award. Secondly, what the hell, I don't know if you can say that on TV, but I got lawyers with me, so I'm sure they'll help me out. What is going on with the county? Last week we had the county executive was on a TV show. County executive Tom Gordon, who did an excellent job, by the way. Mm-hmm. Now he goes over to Italy or he's overseas, so he leaves his top administrator here to run the county. He's in possibility getting bit by another guy. These guys in there fighting. That is crazy what's going on. You didn't think I would say that, did you? And then they call a county, and then you call a county police, the chief, right? He said, well, I hurt my friend. Look, why don't you be my friend? I'm gonna call you. I think that's crazy. I don't know the chief. I don't know the guy who's the acting deputy director, but he's in a lot. He's been making his ways, and the county's going crazy. I mean, like, I'm not going to ask you a legal question, but how does the county council, the executive office, sue the council people? And know what I want to know, Trippy, because you was a politician. I'm not a politician. Where are tax dollars going? I guarantee you. What I want people to do is look and see how much tax money we're spending. County council suing the county executive, or county executive's office suing the county council. It got to be a lot of money. I mean, and these lawyers, right? I'm not a legal guy, but I do know how money rolls because I'm always begging for money. So I know when you're filing briefs after briefs after briefs, somebody got to be paying that $400 or $500 an hour fee, and I think it's me. What else do I want to talk about? While I'm on the road here, the City Democratic Committee. The City Democratic Committee is having an incredible election. Gary Hutt and Mark Mulvaney's great clash like the Titans. That's going to be April the 29th. I would love to be at that meeting. It's going to be at the DAP. You know what? I would like to referee some of this stuff. Some stuff you can't even write. I hear the secretary is going to run it as Phyllis West, and I would support Phyllis, but as secretary, but I can't vote. But I thought Mark Mulvaney and Gary Hutt were friends. I get an email. They said Mark's not living in the district. They kick him out. See, you get all the information. You know why people tune into this show? Because I give them all the information uncut. Because I'm kind of crazy like that, right? What else am I talking about? One last thing before I go to my guest, because this is really a good show. This really is a good show. It's a young lady who's working for Dennis Williams, the mayor. I'm trying to get the mayor on, by the way. And I know her mother and father, Judge Coppage, yep. And Joel. I would like to see her be quoted a little bit more. At the beginning, she was. And you know what happens a lot of times that you get a young person, like 25, 26, to get that job. Then you get old people, 60, 70 years old, 50, 60, 70 years old. Oh, she's making a lot of mistakes. They're making a lot of mistakes. They don't know what they're doing. No, let them make mistakes. Because you know why? Because the people 50 and 60, you guys probably deal with in the legislative hall, are still making mistakes. Am I right? I mean,
we all do.
So let And I met the young lady just for the first time, and I found her to be very pleasant, very smart, very well spoken. Let her, and I'm not trying to put her on the spot because I don't speak for her or anyone else. Let her do the job. You know, and someone called me. I gave the mayor an A in the paper. Guess what? Dan Frawley was my first boss. I gave him an A. Jim Sills is my fraternity brother. I gave him an A. Jim Beck was one of my mentors. I gave him an A. So I give Dennis Williams an A too. So whoever don't like it, hell with them. Welcome to the show. How you guys doing? So I got a lot of stuff out the way. I have Lisa and Drew. How you guys doing?
We're doing very well, thanks.
So it's a lot going on in Legislative Hall, right?
Yes.
And let's just be candid. Let's talk about this stuff. What exactly is the bill, the civil marriage bill that's before our House and Senate?
Okay, well, that's a great question. So 2 years ago, through the hard work of lots of people who work with Equality Delaware and building on the work that Drew did for many years, we passed a civil union bill. The General Assembly passed it and the governor signed it. Civil unions allow for same-sex couples to be joined in what's called a civil union, and it provides state-level protections. So the protections that most families take for granted, like being able to visit one another in the hospital, or being able to file a joint tax return, or being able to be put on your spouse's health insurance at work, those are now covered. You were telling me a story about somebody that you knew whose spouse died and who the family came in and that person didn't have protections. Protects people from that sort of thing. We are now in front of the General Assembly with a civil marriage bill. So civil unions were and are a wonderful advance, but they do not provide the same respect and dignity as marriage. Everybody knows what marriage is, right? And everybody knows when you're in trouble and you're at the hospital or you're at the funeral home, everybody knows when you say, I'm married. Marriage is really important, and it's what everyone grows up to want to have. So marriage is really important, and a majority of Delawareans support it. 54% of Delawareans support it. Support is even higher in the city. Support in the city is over 60%. And currently in front of the Supreme Court right now, there are two cases. The United States Supreme Court, thank you. There are two cases, one of which everyone believes really will overturn the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. That is the law that prevents the federal government from recognizing same-sex marriages at the state level. So if that is overturned, as virtually everyone believes it will, and we have marriage in Delaware, then people will have federal recognition. So if I were to die, Drew would be able to have my Social Security benefits. If I were to die, she would be treated as a spouse for purposes of inheritance. If she was a foreign national, I could sponsor her for immigration purposes, just like any other married couple can. Really important stuff.
So right now, right? I mean, in some states, right? If a couple's together for a while, they're considered married or whatever. So gay and lesbian couples in the state of Delaware won't be treated like that unless this bill's passed.
That's correct.
That's right. That's right. You're talking about common law marriage.
Common law.
Right, which we don't have in Delaware. Actually, I think there are only 2 states in the country that still recognize common law marriage. That's right. If the Supreme Court overturns DOMA, as we believe they will, and we do not have marriage in Delaware, Delaware couples will continue to be treated under federal law as strangers to one another. And that includes, couples at Dover Air Force Base, one or both of whom are fighting and potentially dying for us. So, if God forbid someone dies in service to our nation, normally if they're a married couple, right, 2 uniformed officers come to their house, right, to tell the surviving spouse. They are allowed to be at Dover Air Force Base to meet the body. Same-sex couples don't have those protections.
It's funny you say that. What are some of the biggest misconceptions of gay and lesbian couples?
The biggest misconceptions.
I do think of my questions before I get on.
Yeah, it's a super question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that's all already in place. I think so many people have been so supportive of our family for so many years, and I think they don't really think about how different our place in the world is from theirs. And often, when you and I spoke earlier, you know, and you sort of expressed some surprise at a couple of things. I think people think that we're able to do or have certain kinds of legal protections in particular that we just don't have. That social acceptance is not the same as a legal status.
But wouldn't you agree that times are changing and people are feeling a little bit more comfortable? I mean, when we get a person like a Brittany Griner who just came out, who was the number one person in WNBA, and it wasn't even a story. Right? I mean,
absolutely. The president. I mean, for the president of the United States to publicly evolve on this issue and to say that after lots of thought, he now is fully supportive of marriage equality, it's tremendous. I mean, we couldn't have asked for anyone, frankly, you know, better to say, hey, my kids, you know, have friends at school whose parents are gay, and they should be treated the same. It's huge.
But don't you also think that, go back to Brittany Griner, like a pro athlete, right?
Yeah.
It seemed like women pro athletes are a little bit more comfortable. We've had two males here in the state of Delaware, a guy who played at Sanford and a kid who played at Newark High School in football. Both of these guys have come out gay afterwards, but they still have yet to have one to come out openly in basketball, football, or baseball, any of those sports. Do you think that that would help the cause a little bit more? Or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone who comes out, whether they're in private life or public life, helps. Absolutely. And I think that the first gay male athlete who comes out is going to come out into a really different world than even a few years ago. And I read an article the other day that talked about the first gay male athlete that comes out is probably going to be a billionaire because lots of companies, you know, are going to want to support that person. But yeah, we're still waiting.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, we're talking about civil marriage, talking about civil union, and I hope that you follow the conversation. It's an interesting conversation, and if you want to tune in or call in later on, we're going to open up the phone lines. Are you guys thinking about marriage?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would you be the first in line? or would it be like a whole line of folks?
Well, you know, we were really honored to be the first couple to have a civil union in Delaware.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that was an amazing day. I will never forget that day.
That really was
ever.
something. It was cool.
So I suspect that we'll let somebody else have the turn at being the first couple to be married. But what the bill does is sets up a process to convert civil unions into marriage. So everyone who has a civil union now will be converted to marriage within the first year. And people who have not yet entered into civil unions will just go and get married just like everybody else.
How difficult was it for you guys on your family and or friends? I mean, let's have that conversation because you have a lot of younger folks who deal with these issues, and you deal with a lot of suicide and a whole bunch of, I mean, some serious issues. And you're a little bit more mature now, so you can probably handle the pressure a little bit more than that. What do you say to those folks? And how do you deal with it?
You know, we've been really blessed, I have to say, you know, at the outset. We've both had family, friends, employers, children who have been incredibly supportive of us. But that's not been true for everybody that we know. And as I look at we have 4 kids, and one of our kids is gay. He's in his early 20s and lives out in Los Angeles with his new husband, actually. And you know, for him in middle school and high school, it was pretty tough. He got pushed around a little bit, and it was hard to come out. It was hard. But I think, not to us, but to his friends and teachers and so forth. And you know, I do think that as much as the world has changed, particularly for young people, it's still a little bit of a struggle because, you know, adolescence, it's hard to be different.
Right.
And whether lots of people are out or not, you're still going to be one of only a small number in your class or your school or your circle of friends or whatever. So it's always hard to be different. It's hard to be brave, and it's hard to talk. You know, all young people who are sort of figuring out their romantic life. That's a struggle for all of us, right? And when you sort of layer this on top of it, I think it makes it a little bit more difficult. But you know, one of the things that's been most gratifying, I guess, to me, and you're certainly a great example of this, is how important it is for straight allies to stand up for those kids, whether it's their teachers or their parents or their friends or relatives. When those straight allies, who are, you know, in the vast majority of their world, sort of show them by example, by being supportive of other gay people, and also by outright sort of sticking up for them and letting them share their struggles or their worries. It's a really important thing. And I got to tell you, I think one of the most important moments for me as an advocate was when a young person told us that this was almost 10 years ago, that when they came to our house one night and they saw, this house and dogs and children, and it looked just like everybody else's house, that was the first time he thought it would be okay to be gay.
Wow.
And he was and he felt better. So I think that coming out and having grown-ups, adults that say, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine.
But I'm assuming, right? I mean, that you guys also have friends who are gay, are afraid to come out.
Yep.
Right, because of their professions?
Yeah, we do, although it's getting less and less.
Okay.
I mean, the world is, there's a very famous campaign about it gets better. It really has gotten a lot better. And it continues to get better. But Drew's absolutely right. The most important thing that anybody can do, gay or straight, is come out, either as a gay person or as a straight ally. Because that's how the world is changing. And the world on this is changing really fast. Polling numbers are going up at 4% per year nationally about marriage. So, I mean, that's like a rocket ship.
But we say 54% support it, but there's that 46% who don't. And I've read recently where they had a line of people down Legislative Hall signing petitions against this gay marriage bill.
Right.
So you guys do have your opposition out there. I mean,
yes.
Where do you come on the biblical side or the religious side? And that's their argument. Like, I mean, a union should be between a man and a woman.
Well, that's a great question. So let me break that into two pieces. There are people who...
And by the way, I'm always going to ask great questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't saying that.
People who watch the show know I'm going to ask you questions.
So, first of all, and most importantly, what we're talking about down in Legislative Hall is civil marriage, right? So it's marriage that's recognized by the government.
Right.
And you can go to the government, you have to go to the government to get a license. You can get married by the clerk of the peace. You can be married and recognized by the government, never step foot in a church, okay? Civil marriage. You can also choose to go to your church to be married. And your church can and always has been able to decide to marry you or not to marry you, right? Just like they never have to marry an interfaith couple, they never would have to marry a same-sex couple. Now, the objections of most of the folks who come down to Legislative Hall who are against marriage are religious objections, mostly. And what we say to them is, you're absolutely entitled to believe what you want to believe. The difference is, and Drew is really the family expert on this, is we have a First Amendment, right, which keeps the government out of religion, and also is designed to keep religion out of government. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, so the law is already that any religious organization can marry anybody they want, or not, right? Well, actually, the law is they can not marry anybody they want. There are actually a number of clergy who came down to Legislative Hall for that hearing who said, I want to marry people and I can't. My church, my synagogue, we want to do this and we're not able to do it. So what this would do is basically even that out. And any religious organization, any church, mosque, synagogue, gets to pick whoever they marry, just like they do now. There are lots of churches that won't marry interfaith couples, won't marry divorced people. Well, and won't marry people who aren't members of their congregation. So that's, and that's as it should be. I mean, no religious person should be compelled to perform that marriage. On the other hand, they also probably shouldn't have the right to tell anyone else what they can or can't do based on their religious beliefs.
Wow. Whew.
It's a lot.
This
It's
is a lot.
It's a lot.
But if this bill passes July the 1st, we will be number 12, right?
Right.
12th
There are
state
10.
to have
Well,
openly.
we might. So that's a great question. Right now, there are 10 states plus the District of Columbia where it's legal for same-sex couples to get married. However, marriage bills are currently pending in Rhode Island, which has already passed marriage through one of their houses, Illinois, which has already passed marriage through one of their houses, and Minnesota, which is about to take it up in both of their houses. So we might be number 12 or 13 or 14. I mean, this issue is really, states
And it
are really
look like
moving.
the governor's on board. I see
Governor's
where Chris
totally
Coons is
on
on
board.
board. I saw
Yes.
where Theo Gregory's on board.
Yes.
And I even had Bishop Weeks on the show. He had no problem. So you guys are getting some.
We have wonderful support from amazing groups of folks. Our entire congressional delegation, Senator Coons, Senator Carper, Congressman Carney, all on board. The governor, Governor Markell, has been a huge advocate. Leadership of both the Senate and the House here in Delaware, totally on board, all sponsors of the bill. We're really lucky.
So you have total sponsorship in the House and Senate of Democrats here in the state, pretty much?
Not every Democrat. So there are still some Democrats who either aren't sponsors or maybe aren't supportive of the bill. We believe we're going to have every rep and senator in the city, with the possible exception of one who's new, who we're hoping will be with us in the city. But we're working hard, and we think the bill's going to pass.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you get it first here. That's why you tune in to Community Crossfire. Put the phone number up, and we'll take some phone calls and have some questions.
Great.
You know, I think this. First of all, I think you guys I commend you guys for your braveness, and I think this is an issue that we have to talk about. And anyone who tunes into my show know that we talk about pretty much any issue.
Yep.
I mean, no issues off limits. But if it passed the state and it doesn't pass the federal government, you guys could file your taxes statewide, but not federally.
That's exactly right. We would continue to not have federal protections. Now, virtually everyone who listened to the Supreme Court arguments, U.S. Supreme Court arguments, believes it's going to fail, that DOMA is going to be overturned. But even if it isn't, you know, it's really important to have marriage at the state level, because eventually it's going to happen.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, either you're for same-sex marriage or you're against it. We want to get your phone calls. Let's rock and roll with Community Crossfire. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, how you doing?
How you doing?
You talking about pro athletes? Pro athletes coming out. The guy from the Baltimore Ravens came out and talking about he's for gay marriages, for same-sex marriages. They cut him the next day.
Wow.
So I guess so it's hard for athletes to really stick their neck out on the line for that.
But let me ask you a question. I think the guy said he was for it, but I don't think he said he was actually gay.
No, right.
No, he was for it though, right? Exactly, he was for it. But they cut him the next day based on the fact that he spoke on gay marriages and stuff.
Okay, thank you for the call. See, that's the point, you know, and have we still have not reached that pinnacle in our society, right?
Yeah, and there is a very, very prominent Baltimore Raven who has been very supportive of marriage. I believe he's still with the team. Perhaps that's someone different that the caller is referencing. But gay athletes are, as allies, really beginning to speak out about in favor of marriage.
How you doing? Welcome to the show. Hello? 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 It's off the work.
Goodbye.
We go. Goodbye and good luck. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Norm. Pastor D here. How you doing, Drew?
I'm
Hi,
fine.
Pastor,
Hey, Pastor
D.
D.
How are you?
How you guys doing?
Good.
Awesome.
Great to see you. And Norm, thank you for opening up this topic, man. It is, as a pastor and a person who's performed 59 weddings, let me say that I have a number of gay and lesbian members who I love dearly. And not long ago, when the director of my choir was a lesbian person, I took a lot of criticism from the church world about her. Now, I say all that to say a question form, as I know both of you know and understand law. Is there some sense or some intelligentsia in, say, the judges and magistrates who have the power to marry being compelled legislatively to perform such marriages because government, this is being done and should be done by government, making it lawful both locally and federally. But is there some sense in saying, okay, judges and magistrates should be compelled to have to perform these services, as opposed to the church, which would have doxological problems with it? I've always wondered if that is something, Drew, that might be explored. What do you think about that?
Thanks for the question.
So first, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, who's the expert on this particular iteration of the law. But I just do want to say about Pastor D that, you know, a long time ago, before there were a lot of people in the community who were willing to speak out on behalf of gay and lesbian people, Pastor D was right there, and I want to tell you how much I personally appreciated that, and how much the community did as well.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you the legal question.
Pastor D, the answer to your question is, it's a great question, even though Norm mostly asks great questions. The answer is that there is only one governmental person who has to ever perform a marriage, and that's the person who runs for the office that performs marriages. So only the clerk of the peace is required to ever perform any marriage. So there is a government official whose job it is to perform marriages. And even the clerk of the peace, if he or she wishes, may have a deputy do that. So there's a governmental officer that is required to do that. No other person, even a judge or a magistrate who would be empowered, or a mayor, would be ever required to marry anybody that they didn't want to marry.
Huh. But after this bill passed, the clerk of the peace would have to.
The clerk of the peace or a deputy.
Or a deputy.
Yes.
Wow. Good
And
question.
we went through this with civil unions.
Same rule.
So one of the clerk of the peace in Sussex County originally said he would not perform civil unions,
Hold
and
for 1
came
second.
right around and did it.
But that was a good question. So in other words, like I see where the mayor performs a lot of marriages, and but those guys don't have to.
No, do not have to.
How you doing? Go ahead. Ask your question.
Yes, this is Brother Kamoon.
Okay.
I got a two-part question. Are you guys Christians?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you all respect the teachings of Jesus Christ?
We do,
That's
but
what
you
I wanna
know,
ask.
but we're
Yes.
here. We're here talking about civil marriage. We're not here talking about religion. We're talking about the laws of the state of Delaware.
Okay. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm sorry, Norman, I got choked. An interesting thing on this that is, wait, my oh, there we go, I'm mute now. An interesting thing on this, no church can perform a marriage unless it's okayed by the state. So a church ceremony is a ceremony. You have to get a license from the state in order to get married. So this is an issue that never should have even happened. Everybody should be able to get a license to get married. Church can decide to marry you or not, but the church marriage does not make your marriage legal unless you have a state license.
That is true.
Thank you. Thank you. What an
That's a
incredible
great
show.
explanation.
Well, you know, I mean, we have incredible people to call the show
you do.
good and bad, you know. So the phone lines are ringing, man. I mean, this is a hot topic.
That's great.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yes,
Please turn TV down.
sure will. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. We're here. Go ahead.
Yes, do you realize that this is sexual perversion, and our country is becoming like Sodom and Gomorrah, and you know, God is not going to put up with this perversion. And it's a disgrace. It's just a disgrace to our nation and the state of Delaware. God is not going to put up with this perversion. That's just what it is. You're going to want to destroy production, creativity of the human race. Well, that is not God's purpose. And He is angry. Good night.
Did you want to hold on and let her
Yeah,
answer?
you know, no, let me address that. You know, we've never had a requirement under the law that a couple who gets married be able to procreate, right? So if we did, I mean, think about what it would be like when you went to get your marriage license for anybody. I mean, proving that you had to be able to have children or intended to have children, never been a part of marriage.
And you know, and I think that, you know, I wish the lady had hung on the phone because because this is Crossfire. You can answer any question you want. I mean, and you guys are willing to answer the question, so you don't have to run.
Absolutely.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yes, my question is, I'm not judging this same-sex marriage. I think people have a right to do what they feel. You know, this what you feel is fine for you. But I did hear you say that you were a Christian, and I just have a question. It's right now, while you're living, to live happily married as a gay couple is fine. But if you're a Christian and you know Jesus, what's going to happen when you die and you have to meet Him spiritually? Have you ever thought about, or how do you perceive Him as seeing you two as gay people while you were living? When you in the afterlife, I mean, or is that something you don't discuss? I'm just curious.
Hold while they answer the question. You might have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do think about this, and different Christian churches teach about this differently. And the church that I belong to, which is right here in the city of Wilmington, and lots of other churches, lots of other Christian churches, as well as some synagogues and other religious traditions, really do believe that this is, that the fidelity to marriage is important, whether you're an opposite-sex couple or a same-sex couple, and that's what we're answerable for, is whether we have lived well, lived justly, done well by our neighbors, loved God with our whole heart, and that's what we'll be judged for, and that loving our partners and our families is as important for same-sex couples as for opposite-sex couples. Mm-hmm. And my clergy person would be able to answer this much more eloquently than I, but that's what I've been taught and what I believe.
Did that answer your question, ma'am? Oh. She hung up. Hello?
Hey, Norm, I had to call back, brother, to your caller and to your guest. Listen, the authority, just for the record, on marriage is, in fact, the church. The license is a product. The preamble says, "Dearly beloved, we're gathered together in sight of God in this company to join together this man and this woman into the state of holy matrimony." Now, the government license is a product of government input, so to speak, but the authority for marriage is of the church or of God. So she has to order backwards. It's not God that answers to the state, but the state rather that answers to God, which is why the state should recognize that God is in fact the final authority and declares who can, and the church can marry without that government license, just without the benefit of it.
Right.
Thank you for the clarity. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, that makes
Good.
sense.
You wanted to say something?
Well, I think that the issue of who has authority and the question about God really is everyone is entitled in our country, because of the Constitution that we hold so dear, to believe in their own God or no God. And that is what makes us Americans, is that our church and our government are separate, and our churches are protected by being kept separate from the government, and our people are governed civilly and may choose their religion. And that is, again, what we're here about tonight, is the civil side, not the religious side.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello.
We're here. You might have to turn your TV down a little bit.
Okay.
That's where you get the echo at.
Okay. If we go on a cruise, can the same-sex couple be married by the captain of the ship? Is that legal?
That's a great
That's
question.
a good question.
That
Very
is a
good
great
question.
That is a
I
great
like
question.
that.
I don't know the answer to that. I think it depends on where you are. I think in some
That's a good
places,
question.
yes. Especially, I think if you're in international waters. But that's a great question. I'll have to look that up.
But also, let me ask. Let me follow up to his question.
Sure. Yeah.
If in fact that happened, right? That say you got married on a cruise ship, because a lot of marriages happen, then you came back to Delaware, would that be recognized?
No. If you were legally married by a ship captain right now, and you came back to Delaware, you would be recognized as having a civil union. Because even if you go to New York...
Isn't that kind of weird?
It is very weird. The fact that Drew and I's relationship changes when we cross a state line is crazy.
Wow.
Right? So when we go, to, for example, Virginia, we're not recognized as being married or having a civil union or anything at all. So if we got into a car crash on I-95 in Virginia, we would be strangers in the eyes of the law.
So that's why you need the federal.
That's
That's
exactly right.
Ah,
You
see,
hit
I'm
the
catching
nail on
on.
the head.
I'm a quick learn. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm. Good evening, man. This is Mike Riley.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, first of all, thanks for the program tonight. I think you're doing, what you do best, which is being a responsible person in the media. That means you open your doors in fairness, And the other thing was, I noticed a call from a person, and they asked if the ladies were Christians and things of that nature. And then they said, how do you deal with Jesus after you die in the spirit? Well, I am one who believes that you deal with Jesus in the spirit while you're alive, my brother. So the spirit of Jesus, the one who could judge all harshly if he chose to, He's the most merciful and understanding. So I think that we have a legal system in place, and if people are going to pursue certain things, they go through the legal system. But when it comes to Christianity and spirituality, I believe that the principles of Jesus are fair, openness, lovingness, acceptance, forgiveness, etc. So I don't believe in being on a high horse is what I'm saying. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks,
I think
Mike.
that we got to love each other with the love of Christ.
Thank you, Mike. But you also, I think that it's also important that, because I like to hear both sides.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think that
Absolutely.
that's why this show is here, because people get a chance to open up. And I think that you guys are big enough, can defend what you want to defend.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we understand that people have sincerely and deeply held religious beliefs, and it's very important to us that that those religious beliefs be respected and be protected. And the bill explicitly protects people's religious beliefs. No church, as we've said here a number of times, will ever have to marry anyone. Not only is that protected by our Constitution, but it's explicitly protected in this bill.
It'd be pretty cool if we get the clerk of the peace on to marry you guys on the show. I mean,
Ken would do it.
Ken Bolden would do it in a red hot minute.
Well, I had him do a wedding on my radio show, so that'd be good. Well, I hope that you guys agree to that after the show. You know, that's keep my ratings going up here. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Hello?
Hi, yes. I have a quick question. I'm not probably saying it exactly the way it is, but I do know the Bible says you're to marry and multiply. I'm not talking about infertilization and other things like that. Can anyone answer that for me?
Sure.
Good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the answer is that we've never had a requirement in American law that you prove that you are either fertile or able to have children with the person you marry or intend to have children. I mean, imagine the intrusiveness of the examination at the clerk of the peace's office if you had to prove that you were capable of having children. We've never done that in American law, and I don't think anyone would seriously suggest that that would be a good thing to start.
Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's why you listen to Crossfire. You get your questions answered. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm, how you doing?
Fine.
That's good, man. Look, I believe in this. I commend your guest tonight, but nevertheless, it wouldn't be for me, because the most people look at it on the religious part of it, and what about the individual perspective of things?
What do you mean by that?
Individual. Everybody has laws.
Right.
My law might be I might want to get married to a same-sex person.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's an individual preference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people should look at it like that. But also, Norm, I'm saying, on the religious part of it, that's where a lot of people get confused.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Have a good one.
You know, and it seems like most of the arguments this evening, and I think you guys, and you've done your homework obviously, has come down on the religious point of view.
Right.
That, you know, when you talk about reproducing and things of that nature, and some people can't get past that. So is that pretty much the sticking point right now?
Well, I mean, as I said at the beginning, certainly most of the objections we hear are religious objections. And I think most Americans understand that we have, you know, a separation of church and state. And again, that's why we always stress this is civil marriage we're talking about, and churches will never have to participate in a same-sex marriage or any marriage if they don't choose to. But we expect our government to treat people equally.
And this vote is
fairly.
Tuesday.
The vote in the House is Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Right. So, I mean, if we think about what we expect from our government, we expect fairness from our government. We expect that two people who are similarly situated will be treated the same, right? And that's enshrined in our government, and that's why we're here today, is to talk about equality in marriage.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yes. Are you two ladies married?
We are not. We have a civil union in the state of Delaware.
So basically, y'all committing adultery and fornication then.
Well, trust me that if it was legal for us to be married in Delaware, we would be married in Delaware. But our government does not yet permit us to marry.
And you know, and I want to say to that point, you know, we've been together for a long time, and we made a very conscious decision at the point where Canada, New York, Massachusetts, other states began to have marriage available. Lots and lots and lots of our friends left the state and went and got married somewhere else.
And
we made a decision that we were not going to do that.
I mean, that's a trick question. I mean, but because you can say that about every gay and lesbian couple in the whole state.
That's right.
And every other state that's not legalized, and it's not your fault because you can't legally do it.
We decided to wait and to work in our home state so that we could be married here with our friends and our family.
And on Community Crossfire. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, you're here. You're on.
I know I watch you every Sunday. The Bible says Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Okay. Thank you. Nice rhyme. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello, Norman. How you doing? That's Malachi.
Okay.
I came in kind of late on this show, but I heard about what was being discussed, and the lady made an argument. She made some good arguments, but I feel, based on the Bible, I go by what the Bible says. And I understand what she said about this country is a great country and it has all these different belief systems, and we're allowed to do these things. But the Bible is clear on what God says of marriage. Now, us as men, we're going to do what we want to do. And the Bible clearly states what happens when we go out against what God has already said. Like she said, yes, she has a right to do these things. We all do. Just like when a man is adulterous, okay, or somebody who's homosexual, it's still a sin, okay. But everybody has their viewpoints. But in the end, God's law is the law of the land, okay. Man's going to do what he wants. There's a separation. They said church and state. But eventually, people with different views, they're going to try to sway people in what they believe.
So do you? Let me ask you time out. Do you have an opinion on this subject?
Just basically to say that, okay, I believe what the Word of God says, that is between a man and a woman. Okay. But she has her right. She as a person, she has her right. Okay, a God-given right. Yeah.
So time out. Sounds like you're saying both things.
No, I'm not. I'm basically saying that God gives you free will to make a decision, okay? To either follow his law or not follow his law. Like she said, atheists don't believe in it.
I got you. Great call.
That's what I say one thing, too, that don't forget now, when we close our eyes, it's final, and we have to answer to him. That's all.
Thank you very much. Great call. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm, this is Nino. I want to ask you a question. How you feel about same-sex marriage in church and state?
I don't have a problem with it. Hello, Nino. Nino Brown. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello, Nino.
Hello. You turn your TV down. Look like it's another caller.
Hello.
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 Yeah, go ahead. You're on.
Hello.
You're on. You're on.
Hey, what's the difference between marriage and a civil union? They're still together. What's the meaning?
Right.
Good question.
Yep. So civil unions are recognized by the state. In federal law, there is no such thing as a civil union. So if the Defense of Marriage Act falls, as we all believe it will, civil unions will not be recognized at the federal level. In addition, everyone knows what marriage is. Marriage is about according our families.
Woo! Your TV was way too loud. I couldn't let you get past day one. Hey, look, check this out. Please turn down your TV. Turn it down. Yeah, I thought I was like at a rap concert. All right, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, everybody understands what marriage is, and marriage is what what every couple has. And marriage is what accords the full dignity and respect to our families as to other people's families.
And let me just say, we've mentioned the Defense of Marriage Act a couple of times. Let me just say what it is. In 1996, the U.S. Congress passed a law that said, no matter what the states decide, whether they want marriage, don't want marriage, we, the federal government, will not recognize it. So right now, there are 10 states, plus the District of Columbia that have marriage, but the federal government does not recognize that at all. So people in those states, like in Delaware Civil Union, I can get, Lisa can be on my pension plan, on my health insurance, on our tax returns, we can do those together. None of that is true at the federal level. We can't file a joint tax return, we can't get Social Security, we can't get any of that. Right. So it's this very bifurcated thing. But if what Lisa's saying is if they do away with that federal law, right, Delaware only has civil unions, so it won't matter
to
right?
us in Delaware.
It won't matter to us in Delaware until we have gotten marriage here as well. Because the federal law, even if they take DOMA, say DOMA is no longer the law, Delaware civil unions won't be still won't be recognized because they're not married.
You know, I do want to say one thing I disagree on the argument on when it comes to civil rights, because I've heard the arguments like how blacks were treated in the 50s or 60s, because I've never seen anyone get hosed down, because you guys want to get married. And I get kind of confused when the argument goes there. And do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I mean, it's still like you could go to the same water fountain. And back then we couldn't go to the same water fountain. So when the argument goes there, I get lost.
Right. And I mean,
the history is so different, right? The history
But
is
but
so
a lot of
different.
people make that argument, right?
They
say
do,
that we've been discriminated like you guys.
right.
No.
Well, I think what we say is everyone should be treated fairly.
I agree with that.
It is never, first of all, let me just say, in my mind, there is nothing to compare in this country to the original sin of slavery, right? And every horrible thing that led to and still exists today. But inequality is inequality regardless of where it comes from and how it is expressed.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello, Norm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, did you say a couple of minutes ago, a little while ago, that Apostle Wiggs said he was on board?
I thought he said that on my show. It's on YouTube. You could Google it. Maybe he didn't, but I thought he did. Why? Did you hear something differently?
No, I just heard what I was.
Did you watch the show?
When you first came on,
Yeah.
you said you were naming different ones. Said they were on board.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I was just wondering if I didn't hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yeah. So. The phones are ringing. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm, I'm calling back again.
Go ahead.
Hey, look here, Norm. What I'm going to say is this whole topic is beautiful, man. It's good. It's heavy. But the thing is, I'm back to individual preference.
Okay.
And I done heard several phone calls that you had.
Right.
And everybody says it's up to you what you want to do with your life.
Right.
And the government and the law should stay out of it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because if I want to marry you, I'm going to marry you.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's an individual preference.
You might have just gotten a marriage proposal.
All right. Well, and I think that it's important that we have these kind of dialogues.
Absolutely.
Because it's a real issue, and we got to deal with issues like this that happening all over our country.
Absolutely, and we got to talk
we're
about
dealing with gun issues. You're dealing with violence issues. You're dealing with drug issues. You're dealing with. We just had a bombing over in Boston. Should we be worrying about that more than this? I don't know. It's an individual person.
Yeah.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good evening, sir. How you doing? My name is Ray Donahue.
Uh-huh.
I would like to ask Storm and me and Storm go back for years. So I'd just like to be able to ask him one question, please.
Go ahead.
I just wonder what he thinks about how the Wilmington Housing Authority is being ran right now. That he's in favor of getting it changed.
Hey, Ray, we'll talk about the Wilmington Housing Authority when I have the Housing Authority members on, okay?
Okay.
See, we deal with all kinds of issues.
Everything.
There's no job too big or small. I think I'm gonna have a show next week. Just ask Storming.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Where's the governor at on this? Governor Jack Markell.
Governor is totally supportive. The governor,
Governor, Lieutenant Governor.
yes,
Attorney
absolutely.
General?
Attorney
Attorney
General, the Vice President, the President of the United States. The Governor Markell has been 100% supportive before the election, said he thought marriage equality was inevitable, and has said multiple times that when the bill lands on his desk, he will sign it.
Wow. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yes, good evening, Norman.
How you doing, brother?
Brother Dwight calling.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that this is, first of all, let me just say this. I think that, I guess personally, I've grown kind of weary of having this issue shoved down my throat, where I have to read it in the newspaper and hear people trying to justify something that is just not justifiable. I don't think that it's an issue. It's not an issue because the whole idea of marriage implies opposite sex. Almighty God created everything in duality, man and woman, etc., etc. I think that what we're really talking about is asking the government to legalize sexual relations between individuals of the same sex. So it's an attempt, in my humble opinion, for those who are attempting to obtain gender recognition on an international scale. What I understand about the Constitution and looking at the whole global issue, homosexuality and homosexuals are not a recognizable, identifiable class of people.
Can we let them respond?
Sure.
Would you guys would like to respond to that?
I'm not sure. I don't know that there was a question in there. I mean, that's a, that's certainly.
Are you saying the only thing I'm caught on, they're not recognizable? What do you mean?
Yes, it's not a protected class in the global community, and this is an attempt, in my estimation, to achieve recognition of a person's sexuality preferences, which is totally different from recognizing a person based upon the color of their skin.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dwight.
And I just would like to
Go ahead.
respond to that a little bit, because he makes a point that's been made a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other characteristics of people that we recognize that are not immutable characteristics. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we offer people protection based on their religion or their citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We say if you're national origin, all kinds of things that we don't discriminate based on, that are really about things other than the color of your skin, right? That are, or your gender, things that are choices that you make in life, or things that may not be visible. So, for example, lots of disabled people, we say that we should not discriminate against disabled people. There are many disabled people you can't tell when you look at them.
All right, let's take a few more calls. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, this is Bobby from Newcastle.
Okay.
I mean, I guess everybody have their own opinion, but I want to ask the guest something. Why should the state or the government set aside a law just for homosexuals? Let me ask you this. I want them to ask this question. What if you have two sisters or two brothers on your show now, and they decide to get married? Is it all right for them? Because if it's all right for two women, why is it not all right for two brothers or two sisters to get married? So tell them, please explain to me, what do they mean about two women getting married or two men getting married? Are they talking about father and son, two sisters, a brother and a father, a mother and a daughter? Because if you set aside a rule for homosexuals, then you can open the can of worms for everybody. Could you have them explain that to me?
Very good question. Yeah, good.
I'll be happy to explain it. So, first of all, we're not trying to create a new law. In fact, we are asking to be included under an existing law, which is marriage. There are already rules regarding who can marry. So you can't marry your brother, you can't marry a close relative, or a descendant, right, or an ancestor, right? In other words, you can't marry your mother, you can't marry your kid. All of those rules still apply, right? What we are doing is seeking to be treated equally so that all loving and committed couples will be treated the same under our existing law.
Okay, we got about 2 more minutes, so we're going to take 2 quick calls. All right, you got like 30 seconds. So get your question out. I mean, it's not time to filibuster here. All right, go ahead. Quick question. Go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? This is Malik. I just want to make a quick statement. I'm about 50 years old, and I remember when a lady, the orange juice lady, made a statement about, I guess, homosexual marriages or same-sex marriages, and I'll never forget it, when they attacked her and put her out of business, and she lost her job. And that's a point I made about how sometimes when a group of people have a viewpoint Okay.
Got you.
Eventually,
We got to go. Okay. All right.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. Hello?
I'm just going to listen to you talking what it says. Please turn down. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead. You got like 2 seconds.
Well, I'm just calling in to say, Norman, I've been calling in just to say that this is not right by God's standards.
Okay.
Man can have their own opinions, but it's already laws on the books of marriage. Those ladies on your stage have a right already to be married. They decide that they don't want a man, and they want to go against what God says.
Okay.
God ordained marriage.
And next time you call though, but please, you got to turn your TV down. You can't really hear you. How you doing? Last call.
Yeah, I would like to ask the ladies, are they God-fearing?
Okay, thank you. Well, we've been through that a few times. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Why don't you talk to the camera real quick and tell the audience in your own words, you got like a minute or so, why this law should pass.
Okay.
And I'll sit back and just kind of listen.
Sure. Go ahead. Sure. We'll be happy to. So down in Dover, the General Assembly is about to consider a same-sex marriage law. And we believe it's important to pass for a couple of really simple reasons. Our government should treat all people equally. I think that that's something that we can all agree on. We are protecting churches. We are protecting freedom of speech. We are seeking our government to treat loving and committed same-sex couples, like my spouse and I, the same as any other couple, so that we can have, and our family can have, and our children can have, the same protections that the law affords to you and your family. And we think that that's what America and our Constitution is all about.
You can now kiss the bride. On the air. Okay, don't forget the Marquivas A. Johnson Scholarship Luncheon in memory of Kivas married kid honoring men and women of distinction. This will be Saturday, May the 4th, 12 o'clock at Christiana Hilton. Keynote speaker, the Reverend Dr. Lawrence Livingston, pastor. Wow, I see my man Duffy Samuels on here. It's going to be a very good event. I got that award. And don't forget the City Democratic Committee. We hope someone punch each other there. Get a little fighting there. Just like the fighting going on here. So it's all cool. What else is going on? Gary Hutt against, and I'm supporting Phyllis West for that. And I like to get, I got to get this new county council guy on. And again, congratulations to all the guys in African American. Great show, man.
Yeah, nice
Thank
to see
you
you.
very
People
much.
love,
It was really fun.
people really love Community Crossfire.
It's a good show.
I can see why.
And look, if you want to see any of the shows, Albin always put them on YouTube for me. I think you just go to YouTube, Community Crossfire, Norman Oliver, and you watch the show. Thank you
very much.
Great.
Great
Nice
show.
to be
Great
here.
It was
show.
a pleasure. Thank you.
It's always
Nice
a
to be
pleasure.
here.
Hasta luego, arrivederci. I'm out of here, man.